Biology, Part 219. In modern equivalent called the Neo-Darwinian theory, it can be stated simply as follows. A. The organisms produce far more offspring than can possibly survive. An adult female frog, Rhina temporaria, typically produces about 2,000 eggs, many of which are successfully fertilized and develop into tadpoles. However, in most places, the population of adult frog remains approximately the constant. This means that the individual offsprings have a very low average of chance of survival, probably 0.01% or less. All sexual species produce surplus offspring, most of which die before reaching sexual maturity. B. Organisms differ in ways which affect their survival. Any investigation of species reveals numerous differences of sizes, color, shape, and detailed structure, and physiology, of many of which must affect the survival of individual organisms. The sources of this variation must be considered. Much variation is controlled by genes. C. Much variation is controlled by genes. There are thousands of examples of variation with a known genetic basis. Many of these characters are inherited in a single Mendelian fashion, while others like height or body mass depend on interaction between genes. Although the same features can also be affected by the environment, natural selection keeps species adapted. From the observation above, it follows that the organisms which are best adapted are the ones which are most likely to survive and leave offsprings in the next generation. Provided the variation is controlled by genes, these offsprings are likely to share the favorable characteristics of their parents and will transmit their favorable genes in turn to the subsequent generations. This process is called natural selection and will normally ensure that individuals of one species remain adapted to their environment. C. New species can arise only by isolation. Natural selection on its own is not enough to explain how new species are formed. This can happen only if populations of a species are separated so that they do not interbreed. The separated population adopt to their own particular environments and may diverge, environmentally forming new species. There are possible methods of isolation, namely geographical isolation and ecological isolation. Their relative importance will be discussed in our tutorial. Sources of variation. For evolution to occur, there must be the sources of evolution on which the natural selection can act. The most important sources are gene mutation and chromosome mutation, as outlined in our unit. Gene mutations are chance alteration in the sequence of DNA coding for proteins. Most are damaging, but a few are beneficial, leading to the damaging, but a few are beneficial, leading to the synthesis of new proteins or proteins with improved characteristics. Chromosome mutation described in our tutorial is believed to have played a vital part in the evolution of advanced organisms. Simple organisms like bacteria contain far less DNA and far fewer genes than the prokaryotic organism. A human cell, for example, has 800 times more DNA than the bacterium E. Increases in the quantity of DNA per cell seems to have some about bioduplicates.